Hi and welcome to the GTN Show.
Welcome. Are you one of those unlucky people who gets ill after a big race? Or maybe you know someone who does. Well, it turns out there's some science behind this, and it's not as obvious as you might think.
Yeah, we're also going to be covering more of the fallout from all that drama at the T100 in Dubai. We also discuss the first athlete to actually take Nike on in a lawsuit over their carbon shoes. Plus, the Norwegians, the reigning Ironman world champions, have been doing a rather fun race, a little bit out of their comfort zone. We'll be taking a look at that too.
All right, starting with a look back at the drama and controversy at T100 Dubai. You all will know about it now. Everyone's been talking about it, the lap counting drama. Well, Marten Van Riel was one of the ones we mentioned last week in the show who put out a very scathing criticism of T100 and Pro Triathlon organization. He basically said they shouldn't be called the Pro Triathlon organization anymore because they're not professional at all. Yeah, it was pretty scathing. Well, he's since put a bit more of an in-depth statement, not exactly walking back his previous statement, however, though.
No, I think more explaining a little bit behind his, I guess, that initial almost rage, wasn't it? Or fury.
Definitely some emotions going on there. He basically said his big gripe, and this was in the further statement, was the inconsistency between the bike and the run decisions. He says, in this very same race, another incident happened on the run where nearly all athletes completed only 7 of the 8 laps. Again, shows the importance of having a good system in place to help us complete the correct course and number of laps. What doesn't sit right with me is how differently the two cases were handled, the bike versus the run. For the run, T100 said it was the fault of the electronic counter and shifted the responsibility of knowing the course away from the athletes, whereas the incident on the bike, they placed the responsibility solely on us. In the run case, they brought all the athletes together and let them all decide what was going to happen. In the bike case, they made a jury decision based on the rule book. It feels odd that we don't either involve both athletes in both cases or follow the rule book in both cases, which would have meant disqualifying all but 4 athletes. I am obviously in favor of not DQing 13 people for missing a lap on the run, but I would have loved to have had the same opportunity and see if we could work out a solution with all the athletes for the bike incident as well. And it's a pretty valid point, because if you do look at the times, Marten Van Riel finished 7 minutes behind the leader, despite losing 10.5 minutes on that extra lap on the run. Hayden Wild was less than 5 minutes behind the eventual
bike, the extra lap on the bike.
The extra lap on the bike, yeah. Despite losing 10.5 minutes on the extra lap on the bike, he was only 7 minutes behind the leader, and Hayden Wild was less than 5 minutes behind the eventual winner. So even if you only gave them back 7 minutes of that time, it changes completely the nature of the end result, and obviously then his future for the series and going into the grand final and potential earnings. It's quite a dramatic change from what actually happened.
Yeah, and he goes on that point to say that at the beginning of the year, he signed the contract, planned to do 7 of the 8 races, so he could still sort of have one score that got dropped. But then he says, due to the ever-changing dates and locations, I only managed to do 5. Without a backup score, this race ended my ambition to fight for the overall podium. So it wasn't just this race, it's the much bigger picture. And then he does finish off, pretty strong here. If I had known this updated calendar at the start of the year, I most likely would not have signed the contract.
Yeah, he said, I could have stayed silent, but I believe sport is also about raw emotions and honesty. It's part of what makes it beautiful. As professional athletes, we are expected to perform at the highest level, and organisers should create conditions that allow us to do so. I hope that by sharing my experience, we can continue learning and improve the sport together. And I think most people probably agree with him on that front, that maybe his initial emotions and putting it on social media may not have been the most professional way of dealing with it. However, you do want your athletes to be emotional and invested in their result and not have it taken from them by circumstances outside of their control. However, the T100 CEO went on to make a statement. I mean, I will say about the statement, it took him, over a week to put it out, which is a bit slow on the uptake here, but he was he did make some big concessions in there that it was a lot of their fault.
Yeah, I think it's one big apology, isn't it? But I guess the athletes want more than an apology. They're not offering any solutions to the situation at the moment, and still that's a lot of money that's lost for some of those athletes. And some people were suggesting, well, if they're going to these races have so many laps because they're in Dubai or they're in these countries that are giving them money to host it, should some of that money actually now be almost designated to those athletes that have lost out. I don't know if that's been something that the athletes have put forward, but there were a lot of apologies. But I think unless we actually see actions, it's almost left out there of like, well, what do we do with that apology? And I think the athletes will be very much feeling the same. And he has been, Sam Relief knows that he's they're under the cosh now. And I think the thing that sits maybe uncomfortably for me is that they talk about you being the athlete body. They are the athlete body. They are the athlete's voice. Yet the athletes are having to speak against them because they're not speaking for them. So where does that put them? That's how the whole PTO started about, was to actually protect and look after the athletes.
Yeah, there were some comments on social media where people were like, originally the PTU, as it was originally called, which I was actually a founding member of, started to prevent things like athletes being screwed by race organisers not counting laps and things like that. It's turned into a race organiser who is doing exactly that. Okay, I will give Sam Renouf his due. He did come out, he did apologise, he did say they've not held themselves to the standard that they hoped to. He said, I think the lesson we've taken away from this is let's make it as easy as possible for athletes to do what they do best, which is perform. We are frustrated as anyone in this because we feel we've let ourselves down and have let the sport down because we hold ourselves to a very high standard, just like the athletes hold themselves to it too. And I think that's where we'll draw a line under this and hope that in Qatar, the final race of the series and the whole series next year, we don't see any more of these kind of dramas.
The pressure is on, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Right, we still have races coming up this season. We've also sadly still got some athletes dropping out. I think we all got quite excited to see that Imogen Simmonds was back racing after all of that earlier seen in the year. She chose Laguna Phuket to sort of make her return, and sadly had some illness beforehand and has had to pull out. So she didn't race on the weekend.
No word on where we're going to see her race for the first time again.
Is it also, be Qatar?
Also pulling out at the last minute from a last end-of-season race. Well, Sam Laidlow, he had announced not too long ago, actually, that he was going to race Ironman Western Australia, carry on his season a little bit because the season started so late because of his injury and the illness at the start of the year. But it turns out that he's pushed a little bit too hard, he says, and has got a bit of an Achilles niggle, and it's just not worth travelling to Australia to do Ironman Western Australia, which will be the final Ironman of the year. So he is out of that one.
Yeah, that's a shame. Something a bit more light-hearted at the Laguna Phuket Triathlon. We saw a very impressive stunt. I had to watch it several times because it looked like it was sort of choreographed almost.
Yeah, pre-planned.
Taylor Reid was at the front coming out of the swim in T1 and obviously tripped over something and didn't quite go splat like James did on his recent running tumble. You could take some lessons here from Taylor and how to style out your little tumble.
Definitely not that nimble. I think he's a bit younger than I am. Yeah. Also, as Heather was saying at the beginning, Norwegians have taken part in an indoor triathlon, significantly shorter than any of their specialty distance. But there's a lot of world champions taking part in a short race in Norway.
Yeah, an event that involved a 200-metre swim, a 4K bike on Zwift, and then a 1K run on Zwift. To have, Solveig Losveth and Kasper Stornes, as well as Gustav and Christian racing there, is pretty cool for, I think, the sport in Norway. And they had the club athletes and national athletes racing alongside them. And what a way to inspire the next generation to have those guys literally sat alongside you racing flat out in something that must have been pretty horrific to race at if you're trained for an Ironman as well.
Yeah, exactly. Some off-season fun, if you can call it fun, I guess. Some more Ironman news. Spencer Matthews, we spoke about this last week. He had started his 7 Ironmans and 7 continents in 21 days. He has just arrived in Dubai on his way to Australia to do his 4th one in Perth in Australia. He has just completed the 3rd one in Cape Town in South Africa, and he said it did not exactly go as planned. Basically, you got the weather. In Cape Town, well, you can get the wind, and that's what he got. He said was about as unforgiving as a race can get. 3.8 kilometers swim at dawn in 9-degree water. Yeah, the water around Cape Town's cold. Worried about sharks and other wildlife, he also said. As you should.
That makes you swim faster, surely.
Followed by 180 kilometer of hilly, windy cycling. It was so windy that the roads were being closed and traffic signs were being ripped off their posts. Cycling became very dangerous and took just under 10 hours. And then, of course, a full marathon finishing just after 10 p.m. 17 hours and 15 minutes total for the day. I'm shattered, but that won't stop us travelling to Perth tomorrow morning for the same again the following day.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I think he's got a little stopover in Dubai, hasn't he? But, lucky it wasn't an official Ironman because he would have just missed the cut-off for that.
Are you just counting out? You're not going to count any of this, Heather.
I
You're
mean,
be like,
those
you know
15 minutes, yeah.
You're out. That's a DNF, mate. You're out. You're out.
Do that. He's doing it for a great cause, so I would follow along if you're not already.
Wish him well. He's got 4 more to go.
Yeah. Some sort of off-season news, I guess, for those athletes who've planned their season well. Beth Potter got married over the weekend, and one of the pictures that caught my eye was the fact that she, in most of her pictures, is wearing some lovely pair of sort of white heels that match her dress, but she also has, ASICS seem to have made her a bespoke pair of white sneakers, running shoes, dancing shoes, most probably, that I presume she wore later on in the evening.
Complete with the wedding frills.
Yeah, love that. I mean, that is one way to have a great relationship with your sponsor, isn't it? And whether this was planned for off-season exactly, I imagine less so.
They pulled it off though, didn't they?
Didn't they?
We spoke last week about Sam Long entering both Cozumel and Arizona Ironmans because they were a week apart and he wasn't sure when the baby was going to arrive. As it turned out, their second son arrived just 40 hours after he finished that Ironman in second place in 7 hours and 37 minutes. Laura was actually on the course supporting him for that, and then 40 hours later, they gave birth to their second son. Congratulations to both of them on the arrival of their new addition to the family.
A new study has recently come out in the European Journal of Sports Science that it's quite topical at the moment as we're coming to the end of what has been a pretty busy packed season, both for triathlon and for running. And this research is actually looking at the link between racing and then getting ill shortly afterwards. I mean, have you ever got ill after a race?
I have. Recently, I was kind of ill during a race. If you watched our recent OMM video,
we didn't notice in that video.
No, I know. I kept it really under wraps. Yeah. Anyway, the interesting case of this is that the scientists don't find that it's actually what you would assume it was. Now, they've looked at marathon running, and in 2024 actually had the highest number of big marathon finishes in the world. And we always know that the health benefits of running, it basically increases your immunity. It makes you healthier and therefore less likely to get ill. However, there's an increased prevalence of illness or colds straight after major marathons or marathons. And so here's the interesting bit. They used to think that it was because that you had decreased immune function because of the effort of the marathon, so you obviously knocked your immune system down. Also, you were exposed to massive crowds in a very close proximity, especially at the start line.
Like, oh, no.
And everyone's coughing on you. But they've actually found that it's not due to that at all. It's actually linked to your stress, anxiety, and mood leading up to the run. People who are more stressed were more likely to get ill afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely has surprised me. But to find this out, they took a study of 406 runners. They gave them a questionnaire in the days leading up. They also took saliva samples pre and post race, and then they tracked any cold symptoms for the following 2 weeks. And they found that runners who were more anxious, whether that was sort of anger, whether it was fear or a bit of frustration or tension, that they ended up being or more likely to have some respiratory infection in the 2 weeks after.
Yeah, they also performed a similar test in the lab, so a more controlled environment, on just 45 subjects. And they found that men with higher levels of anxiety, higher stress levels, and greater mood disturbances before the test were actually more likely to get illness after the run. They didn't see the same results in women, possibly because of hormonal fluctuations, possibly due to contraceptive use, or even differences in the immune response depending on the menstrual cycle phase. So they're not really conclusive on that. But the men, it was definitely more due to people who have been anxious.
Yeah, so they looked at both the psychological and the physical stresses, and apparently they use a similar mechanism in the way that they respond within our body. So through the hypothalamic pituitary axis, I have to read that one, I'm afraid, and the same next one, the sympathetic medullary axis. And they say that these pathways link the nervous system to the brain and play a role in that stress response. So high psychological stress or prolonged exercise can suppress these axes. I think we're all aware, aren't we, when we train and race, that stress is stress on the body when it comes to how your body deals with it anyway.
But it turns out that stress is not actually the physical stress of running a marathon. It's the psychological stress of you worrying about it. So what you really need to do is chill out in the lead up to your marathon. Don't get so stressed.
Why are you worrying about it?
It's just a marathon. Why are you worried about it? Yeah, but seriously, you can plan your travel a little bit better so that you don't get there at the last minute. You're not running around frantically and really stressed leading up to the race. You can also try and arrive the night before or 2 nights before so that you have plenty of time to be relaxed before that race, and it will actually help you on the back end for the 2 weeks when you're limping around the office to not also have a cold.
Yeah, I would say don't get there too early though, because then you've got more time to think about it and get worried about your race.
If you're prone to anxiety, maybe don't be sitting around in a hotel room making yourself more anxious.
Yeah, but it's now you know that it might help you or it might make you worry more.
Yeah, good luck. Food for thought anyway. On to some industry news. Rouvy has announced a renewal of their partnership with Challenge Family and an addition of Dartev Challenge Roth to their list of events they'll be supporting in 2026. They have expanded their collection of challenge routes across Rouvy. These are obviously all routes that you can ride. You could already ride the Challenge Roth route. I did last year in my hour a day. I never got round the whole course in an hour. Can't imagine why.
Yeah, come on, James, what are you doing?
Well, what you can actually do is you can jump back to where you got off your bike last time.
I've definitely used that feature
over the
before.
course. I've managed to, exactly, but I never rode the whole thing. They've also welcomed Patrick Langer, 3-time Ironman world champion and Challenge Roth champion, to the athlete roster for 2026.
Yeah, and Marten Van Riel, he'll be at least adding some money, even if he's not getting it from the T100. He has now signed up. Matthew Marquardt, Steph Clutterbuck, Joe Skipper, and Tom Usadik also join the roster with Rouvy.
Yeah, really cool. Moving on to some more industry news, and this one not so sunny. Nike has been sued by a former NCAA runner. Now, this is quite interesting. We've actually covered this previously on the show. The prevalence of lower foot injuries in these new carbon super shoes, and that potentially they do increase the prevalence of them because of the aggressive rockers, because of the carbon plate, and because of the soft foams. But obviously it's never really been proved. However, Heather Cerny's attorneys have filed suit against Nike this week in the US District Court for the Northern District of California, which alleges that Cerny suffered a sesamoid fracture in her left foot due to the carbon plate and geometry of the Nike Alpha Fly. The suit includes allegations of product liability, negligence, failure to warn, and breaches of both express and implied warranties. It also states that Cerny was unaware of any potential risks of carbon-plated footwear.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know whether this is going to go anywhere. Essentially, she said that she paid full retail price for the shoes of nearly $300 for the Alpha Fly 2s in November 2023. She then wore the shoes for the first time in the San Francisco Turkey Trot, a 5-mile road race. She finished second overall female, won her age group, and after the race, she began suffering severe foot pain in her left foot. She was forced to undergo surgery for the injury, as the sesamoid fracture is susceptible to necrosis, and really not good. And then, she basically says she's got a partial disability despite medical intervention, and it now impacts her daily life and ability to work. So the suit relies heavily on an article that was published in Sports Medicine Journal, Bone Stress and Injuries in Runners Using Carbon-Plated Footwear, where the article basically says that highly competitive athletes running in these shoes increase their risk of foot injuries.
Yeah.
But it's kind of disputed by Nike.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where this is, could go, because we've all been enjoying the speed that carbon shoes give us, and we willingly choose. We are, I guess, responsible for what we put on our feet at the end of the day, and how can we be blaming or accusing a brand that we give money to get that shoe? We're enjoying running faster, we're enjoying the carbon shoe. It's our responsibility what we put on our feet and how we then look after our bodies and train. And I can't see how even the best lawyers could come up against Nike's lawyers with this. I think that's just going to be thrown out straight away, surely.
Possibly. I do contend that they can actually give you stress fractures in your shoes because they are so different from normal running, so that you can get a stress fracture in your foot from running in them. I've actually warned people and athletes about this. You have to really build into them.
It's still your responsibility.
You can't jump into them and just run ridiculous distance. But that goes with pretty much everything.
Yeah. You can't change anything in your training.
You can't change anything drastically and then blame the thing that you used. However, there's also a kind of precedent on this. I first saw this on the Slow Twitch article with Ryan Hasler. And he said that he was actually part of the Vibram Five Fingers lawsuit back in 2014, where Vibram was sued because of their claims of injury benefit and stuff with the barefoot shoes back in the day. There was a class action lawsuit, and they paid out on that class action lawsuit because apparently their claims were deemed misleading. I think he said in that article that he got $7 payout for that. So if you bought some Alpha Fly 2s in the last few years, you could have $7 coming your way.
Don't get your hopes up. And if you've already spent $300, it's not.
I wouldn't hold your
breath.
I have a feeling Nike's lawyers might be a bit better than Vibram's lawyers too.
And I guess they're not actually promoting the fact that you are not going to be injured, are they? There's that difference. They're promoting that you're going to run fast in them.
Yeah. Be careful with your carbon shoes, though.
They're expensive. Well, it is getting towards the end of the season because we just have 2 races for race news this week. Laguna Phuket, we mentioned earlier. It was a dominant performance for Georgia Taylor-Brown, who took the fastest swim, bike and run for a very convincing win. And Taylor Reid, after his little forward roll in the run, had a closer battle on the actual run section, but still took the win on the men's race.
Good thing he recovered so quickly from that tumble, otherwise he would have lost. Also, Ironman Cozumel, another traditional end of season lost hurrah for a few people. Lisa Pertra took the win on the women's side there, and on the men's side, Arthur Hussau, who is training partner of Sam Laidlow, actually took the win there, overcoming a pretty bad season and to end it on a high, so well done to him. All right, now it's time for Try Spy. And last week we had this image, which tripped a few of you up, but a few of you actually figured it out. Jane Marshall said Kate Waugh, but it wasn't, and the Guzglow just agreed with Jane Marshall and said me too. But you're both wrong. Mr. P. Carey said Lucy Charles Barkley in the shades. It wasn't Lucy Charles Barkley. However, the first one to get it right, we think, was Jan Stelsner. It's Tanya Newbert. Stuart Greenan also said Tanya Newbert. Awesome third spot in Marbella. And it was indeed Tanya Newbert.
Yeah, well done. It was a fairly tough one, wasn't it? Although this week, I mean, we all work on the show script together, and Mark might not be in the show, but he has just gone hard on you guys because he has chosen this picture.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We're putting this down to Mark. He may have over-calibrated the difficulty settings for this week's Try Spy, but if you know who that is, leave your answers down below.
I think we can give a tiny clue.
No clue. One. Let's just see if they get it. They're good. They're better than you think they are.
If any of you guys get this, I will be massive respect.
They're better than you think you are. No clues. Go on, guys.
Wow.
Tell us who it is.
Good luck.
Say what? Okay, looking at some of your comments under our videos, and particularly looking at Heather's Ironman 70.3 World Champs video, which came out this past weekend. A great video, I must say, and obviously a great achievement for Heather to finish 65th or 4th in the world.
I think. Yeah. It was okay. I mean, your comments, you guys have been just so lovely.
Well, Ben Robinson
really
said, well
them.
done, Heather. You smashed it, not just in your personal achievement, but also you're an inspiration to everyone who watches GTN.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Oh, it is very kind. I can't read those comments out.
Let's see if she can get into blush today.
But there's some which I like, which are really related to some of the things I was saying, including Eliza Suti, who says, this reminded me of the distorted perception I can get from people passing me. I don't see the people who are moving slower or at my pace behind me, and I can feel like absolutely everyone has passed me. But she goes on to say that she isn't fast. I'm sure she is, but it's so true how you just feel like I literally can believe there was still anyone behind me. But anyway, I've said that in the video. Don't need to go back there, do I?
Everyone thinks they suck and they don't, is basically, I think, the message. Yeah. Keith Dornan said, Heather Fell, spouse, mother, and Ironman. Way to go. You're an inspiration to all triathletes. Enjoy the off-season. Please put together a video of all the GTN bloopers for the holiday season. I hate to break it to you there, Keith, but Heather didn't do off-season too well. In fact, we might actually make a video of her trying to convince her that she should have an off-season and maybe you take a bit of a break. But anyway, that video coming soon.
I have upped the wine intake though. So this final one, which I'm going to share, is saying that from AJ HL says, I love that you said, even if I go slowly, I get to enjoy it for longer. I don't remember that one in my head when I was racing. I should have done. It's always tricky when you're racing hard, but a perspective I really like is that if you worry less about the time and focus more on being in the moment, the celebration begins at the start line, not just at the end. And this whole race and accomplishment is definitely something to be celebrated start to finish. I didn't feel like I was celebrating the whole way, but I tried. I tried hard.
Well, excellent video and excellent achievement. Well done, Heather. Right, final reminder, our Black Friday sale is now on. You can go to the website, the link down below now, up to 50% off on selected lines, but there is limited stock on there, so when it's gone, it's gone. So click that link now.
Yeah, and we have a video coming up that James has been busy filming. Now, if you do want some advice on buying running shoes, maybe not carbon shoes, if you are looking for your first pair of running shoes, then this will help you. But we're also, very excitingly, introducing our new newbie, so keep an eye out for that video.